place as they reach the age, Gil Mitzvah, of the age of accepting the commandments. For the first time, they have the opportunity to stand before a congregation in prayer and to lead it in prayer as equally obligated. Symbolic of that stage, for the first time, they put on a talit. And so we welcome our bat mitzvah, the parents, to come forward and to put on a talit. You may take off the mask as you come forward, yes. I'll step out of your way.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tivanu lahit tatef bat tzitzit.
Amen. Ready? Ready? Yeah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakiyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh.
You guys can go down. You're going to stay up here. Don't get ready because we're going to put you to work soon. Yes. We turn to page 13. We begin together with Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Asharet, Malachi Ayon, Melech, Malachi Amlachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu, Boachen LeShalom, Malachi Ashalom, Malachi Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, Shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Ayon, Melech, Malachi Amlachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu, Tzedkem LeShalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Ayon, Melech, Malachi Amlachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. We turn to page 14. We invite Nora and Heidi to come forward and lead us in the Sabbath prayer at the bottom of the page.
Dear God, help us now to make this a new Shabbat. After noise, we seek quiet. After crowds of indifferent strangers, we seek to touch those we love. After concentration on work and responsibility, we seek freedom to meditate, to listen to our inward selves.
We open our eyes to the hidden beauties and the infinite possibilities in the world you are creating. We break open the gates of the reservoirs of goodness and kindness in ourselves and in others. We reach towards one holy, perfect moment of Shabbat.
We begin our Kabbalat Shabbat service on page 15, the first of 6 Psalms representing the 6 days of the week, Lechuna Ranina, at the top of the page. Lechuni Ranina, Lechuni Ranina, Lechuni Ranina Larnai, Lechuni Ranina, Lechuni Ranina, Lechuni Ranina Larnai, Naria, Naria, Litzor Yeshenu, Nikadma Vana Bitoda, Naria, Naria, Litzor Yeshenu, Bivmiro Naria Lo, Lechuni Ranina, Lechuni Ranina, Lechuni Ranina Larnai, Lechuni Ranina, Lechuni Ranina, Lechuni Ranina Ladonai, Ki Agadol Malakadol Akali, Masha Biado Makariar, Fetofarim Lo Shehlah. תשמעו אל תחשו לבבכם כי מראיתם יום. 40 שנה כות בדור ואומר עמתו אל לבבהם הם לא ידעו דרכי אשר נצבעתי ויפי מבעון אל מנוחתי. Page 16. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו, ספרו בגויים כבודו, בכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני. ומהולל מאוד נורא הוא על כל אלוהים יאללה 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 Four lines from the bottom. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz, Yiramayam, 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 umelot, Yiramayam, 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 umelot, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. יעלו שדה וכל אשר בו אז ירננו כל עצי יער לפני אדוני קיווה לשפוט הארץ ישפוט תבל בצדק ועמים באמונתו. Page 17. אדוני מלך תגל ארץ ישמחו חיים רבים מנה וערפל סדבו בצדק ומשפט נכון. שמעתי שמח ציון ותגרנה בנות יהודה למען משפטך אדוני כי אתה תשמעון כל הארץ. אור זרו על הצדיק ולישמעאל שמחה שמחו צדיקים באדוני והודו לזכר קודשו. As we turn to page 18, we welcome Lorna, who's going to lead us in the reading in the English responsively.
Good Shabbos, everyone, and Mazel Tov to Eliana and her family and loved ones. If I can do this. Sing to Adonai a new song, for God has worked wonders. God's might has been triumphant, revealing supreme power to all.
God has remembered his steadfast love and faithfulness to the house of Israel.
The whole world has seen the triumph of our God. Let all on earth shout for joy and break into jubilant song.
Sing praise to Adonai with the harp. With trumpets and horns make a joyful noise.
Let the sea roar and all its creatures, the world and its many inhabitants.
Let the rivers applaud in exultation. Let the mountains all echo earth's joyous song.
Adonai is coming to rule the earth, to sustain the world with kindness, to judge its people with fairness.
So So now everybody who is able to hear that, you do not need to go to an audiologist. You know you can hear very well. Bottom of page 18. Lifnei Adonai ki va lishpot haaretz, yishpot devel b'tzedek v'amim v'yemei sharim. We continue on page 19. Adonai Malaka. The bottom of the page. We rise, turning to page 20, the Psalm of God's power within nature. Mizmor David, Havu l'Adonai v'nelim, Havu l'Adonai, Kavod va'od yalalai, Havu l'Adonai, Kevod shemo ishtachavu l'Adonai b'har kodesh, Kol Adonai alamayim el hakavod hirim, Adonai amayim ravim, Kol Adonai b'koach yalalai, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shomer arazim, V'shaber Adonai et arzei alvanon, V'yargidem kemo egel Levanon, V'siryon kemo v'nereim mi'alala, Kol Adonai chotzev lavodesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yechol el hayalon, Vayechesof Ye'aron uvehechalon, Kulo omer kavod Adonai lamamur Yashava Yishev Adonai melech liolam, Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarek et amo Shabbat Shalom. Ya la 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 la. 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 You may be seated. So in 16th century Safat, the Kabbalists developed what we're doing right now, the concept of a Kabbalat Shabbat, a mystical introduction to actual prayer. They put together a series of psalms, the 6 psalms that we've just recited representing the 6 days of the week. It will be followed in just a second by a 7th psalm, a psalm reflecting Shabbat. And in between those 2 sections, we'll find Lecha Dodi. It serves as a spiritual transition between the end of the Chol, of Friday, and the beginning of Shabbat, linking profane and holy time together. The song itself is a beautiful compilation of passages from the Bible. It contains references to Jerusalem, to the Messiah, the Jewish people. There are prophecies of Isaiah as well as hints of Talmudic and Midrashic ideology. And while using biblical text, the author nonetheless makes changes. He makes changes to fit the rhyme scheme that he's attempting here, and he uses the poem creatively to mean new things. If you look at the structure, we're looking at page 21. Rabbi Shlomo Ibn Alkovitz, the author, signed his name into the verses. So if you look at each of the first 8 verses, the first letter of each, you will find the name Shlomo Halevi. He built his name in. Again, it was a mnemonic. The rabbis built, you didn't walk into a synagogue and pick this up. You had to memorize the service. And so they built mnemonics, and one of the ways in which in Middle Ages and on, they used to construct the prayers was to use their names often within the text. However, you'll notice there are 9 verses, and there's only 8 letters in Shlomo Halevi. So no, what's going on here? The last stanza, Bo'i v'Shalom, has nothing to do whatsoever with Shlomo Halevi. So why 9? The structure of the poem reflects Kabbalistic theology and methodology. When we include those 9 stanzas together with the opening line of Lecha Dodi, you now have 10 components to this poem representing the 10 Kabbalistic sifrot, the 10 emanations of God's presence. The numbers and the words of the letters are also significant to Kabbalists. So look at this opening line, Lecha Dodi, you'll find that there are 7 words, again, symbolizing the 7 days of the week, and there are 26 letters, the numerical value of God's name in Hebrew. Following this connection to holiness, the opening 2 stanzas and the last stanza spotlight Shabbat, a sense of holiness and sacred time, whereas the middle 6 verses between feature Jerusalem, sacred space. Though human beings perceive time and space as separate dimensions, Kabbalah sees them as one long continuum. And Jerusalem is the spatialization of the holy, and Shabbat its temporalization. We see this merging, by the way, in another way when we say a bracha, the last word of the first line, ha'olam. Olam we often translate as universe, but it really means not only the universe of space, but the universe of time as well. It's God as the ruler of all that is in existence. The opening line now, Lecha Dodi, means come, my beloved. All right, come. It's an invitation to God. We welcome God in helping us to welcome the Shabbat bride, the Likrat Kala. And with an eye to the future, the poem further depicts Israel asking God to bring upon us the great Shabbat of Messianic times. And as such, Lecha Dodi is an expression of yearning, a yearning for deep and meaningful reunification with God. The Midrash of Genesis Rabbah tells us that every day of the week was given a partner. And so you have 3 pairs and 1. Shabbat stands separately. And so God rectified the injustice by making Israel the Shabbat's husband and the Shabbat Israel's bride. And this personification of Shabbat testifies to the tremendous affection with which Shabbat, a symbol of a relationship with God, has been held among Jews. At the end of the day, it's all about relationship with God. Looking at the first verse, Shamor begins Shamor v'zachor, observe and remember. This assumes something. This assumes a knowledge. It assumes that you know that there are 2 different versions of the 10 commandments, one in Exodus and one in Deuteronomy. And although conceptually they're identical, structurally they're not 100% the same. One of the commandments looks at the 4th commandment and says, Shamor, observe the Shabbat. The other, however, says, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, remember the Shabbat. And the rabbis looking at this concluded that God uttered both of these words simultaneously. As reflected in the piyut here, what it says, the Shamor v'Zachor b'dibor echad, these 2 words were uttered at once in a way only God can do. Also mystically, unlike the ancient mystics, the medieval mystics rather, we no longer go out into the field. We no longer go out and greet and escort the Shabbat bride into our midst. Instead, what we will do is when we sing the last verse, the entire congregation will rise and you turn towards the entrance to the synagogue or towards the west, towards the setting sun, and we greet the Shabbat queen as she arrives. So much more than simply a song or a melody, this beautiful piyut is infused with symbolic relational meaning, and it ushers us through the transition from the routine of the week into the holiness and time, which we call Shabbat. With that, we turn to page 21. Lecha dodi lichrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi lichrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad ishmi'anu elam yuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shem u'tifer v'litila lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki mekor haberacha mehirosh mikeden nisukat of maaseh b'machshavat tchila lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela mikdash melech ir melucha kum yitzei mitoch ha'apeka ravelach shevet b'yemek ha'baka v'hu yechmol alaychem la lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela Ari me'afar kumi, liv shibigdeti partechami, ayad ben Yishai beit halakmi, koreva el nafshi giala. Lekadodi edodi, lekadodi likrat kala, pene javani kamela, lekadodi likrat kala, pene shabani kamela, hidoreri, kiva ore, kumiori, ori, shidaberi, kivodadai Allah, iknigla, lekadodi edodi, lekadodi ligrat kala, ene javani kabila, lekadodi ligrat kala, ene shabani kabila. We turn to page 22, the final stanza. We rise, we welcome the Shabbat bride as we face the door. Bo'im shalom ateret bala, gam besimcha uvetzoala, toch emuni yom segola, bo'ichala, lecha, dodi edodi, lecha dodi grat kala, penne javani kabila, lecha dodi likrat kala, penne shabani kabila. You may be seated. We turn to page 23, the Psalm for Shabbat. Mizmor shir, shir leyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor shir, shir leyom ha-Shabbat. Tov lehodo l'Adonai, ol izamel shimcha elyon, lahagid baboker chastecha, ve'munarcha b'halelor. Mizmor shir, shir leyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor shir, shir leyom ha-Shabbat. Ale asor ale navel, ale gayon bekinor, kise matani Adonai befo alecha, b'mase yadecha aranin. Mizmor shir, shir leyom ha-Shabbat. Mizmor shir, shir leyom ha-Shabbat. O ginuvum b'seva d'shenim v'rananim iyo le'agid ki asher Adonai tzuri v'lo avlatavo. Page 24, we invite Jeff and Sharon to lead us through the English of Psalm 93.
Adonai is sovereign, crowned with splendor. Adonai reigns, robed in strength.
You set the earth on a sure foundation. You created a world that stands firm.
Your kingdom stands from the earliest time. You are eternal.
The rivers may rise and rage. The waters may pound and pulsate. The floods may swirl and storm.
Yet above the crash of the sea and its mighty breakers is Adonai our God supreme.
עדותיך נאמנו לברך נאווה קודש, אדוני לאורך ימים. Mourner's Kaddish, page 24. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתחלל שמי לקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen. Having completed the preliminary Kabbalat Shabbat service, we turn to Ma'ari, page 28. We rise for Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai Amivorach. Baruch Adonai Amivorach li'olam va'ed. You may be seated. Baruch et Adonai Olam asher b'dvaro ma'arim. Baruch Makutak Sha'arim. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המריב הרבים. Page 29. אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו וקומנו, נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה. ואהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאותה ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. We continue to read it silently through page 31. והיה אם שמוע תשמעו את הישר נקים מצוואתכם היום. ונתתי עשב ושדק ונתך דחרת וזבת הישמע ופרית הדבר תכנסת. אני בי מאד מה שנשפט אליי ובתקנתי נשמע על הארץ ויאמר בעצם לא יודע. Adonai Elohechem emet. Temen kosod v'kayam aleinu ki hu Adonai Elohim Yisrael. Page 32. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ובני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש ובניך בוקע ים לפני משה זה ליענו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדרנו את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גא ישראל. The morning and the evening service have parallel blessings that surround the Shema. Blessings recognizing God as creator, God as the source of revelation, God as redeemer. In the evening service, there's one additional blessing, one recognizing God as protector. With the setting of the sun and the sense of darkness, we all feel just a bit more vulnerable than we do during the day. And so we've added this fourth blessing, page 33, Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'amidenu makenu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'amidenu makenu lechaim. Ufros alenu sukat shelomecha baruch ata Adonai hapore sukat shalom alenu v'yakol amo Yisrael ya Yerushalayim. We rise, page 34. So not only were we blessed with Eliana, who's been able to bring her guitar and to sing, but with Navatella, who's been working with Eliana and brings beautiful voice with her as well. We continue the middle of page 34. Yitkada, Shema Rabbah, V'yomad yivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayekonu v'yomechon u'chayedecha ben Yisrael b'gala u'vizman kariv yimru yehishmer Rabba mivarach li'alam olam yomaya Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yipar v'yitromam yitnaser yitadar yit'alev yithalal shemei l'kudesha b'riyecho le'elam inko birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran b'yamav yimeru. The words of the Amidah, an opportunity for silent reflection and engagement with God, begins on page 35. Ose shalom bimromav, oyase shalom aleinu, v'yachva Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. Yase shalom, shalom aleinu, v'yachva Yisrael, Yase shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. v'yimeru. Now that you're comfortably seated, we're going to ask you to rise and we turn to page 47. Vayechulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzivam vayikal Elohim bayom hashvi'i milato asher asa vayilbod bayom hashvi'i mikol milato asher asa Vayevarech Elohim et Yom HaShvi'i Vayekadesh oto Ki bo Shabbat mikol melato Asher bara Elohim la'asor Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah El Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Kone Shamayim v'Aretz Magin Avon bidvaro mechayim etim b'mamaro ha'el hakadosh she'en kamohu hameniach le'amo b'yom Shabbat kodsho ki ba'meratza le'aniach lahem ki ba'meratza le'aniach lahem לפניו נעבור ביראה ופחד ונודה לשמו בכל יום תמיד מן הברכות אל ההודעות אדון השלום מקדש השבת ומברך שביעי ומניח בקדושה לימדו שני עונג זכר למעשה בראשית אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו רצה במנוחתנו קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך צוונו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך וטהר ליבנו לעובדך באמת והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו ביעלה וברצון שבת קודשך וינוחו בישראל מקדשי שמך ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Kaddish Shalem, the middle of page 48. Yikra yikra shemir rabba me'miyam adivra kirut evyam lichmachute b'chayechon v'mechon b'chayechon bet Yisrael bagalav izman karev yimeru yehesh merabba mivarach li'alam olam me'omaya Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitbar v'yitrumam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalash merkoresha b'recho ni'ela minko birchata v'shirata t'brata v'nechamata damiran b'yalma v'yimeru amen Tikabat zilot hon v'al hon d'chol Yisrael kodam avon v'shmaya v'yimeru יש לומר רבה מן שמיים וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל אמרו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. Hiddush, page 49.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kosho v'yahava uvrotzon hinhilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reshit, ki hu yom tehila l'mikroi kodesh, zeker l'tziat mitzrayim, kivanu v'charta, v'yatanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat shoshecha, v'yahavu ratzon, yilchalanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Chaim. It was a good year for grape juice.
It's a good year.
Page 51, Elaine.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula l'yosei breshit,
Shelo asanu ki goyei ha'aratzo, v'lo samanu ki mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem,
HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
You may be seated. On this Shabbat, our hearts go out to the family of Sherry Hager, and we're observing the yahrzeits of Dorothy Appleblatt, Martha Baker, Hyman Baker, Robert Kalem, Barbara Conaway, Wolf Einstein, Irving Feld, Benjamin Friedland, Sophia Geffen, Paula Cantor, Maya Kirstein, Billy Kosofsky, Bernard Needus, Stanford Shep Rosen, Julia Sack, Julia Serchik, Leon Slatko, Simon Susan, Sarah Lee Teitel, Estelle Tozier, Samuel Weisfeld, and Richard Whitman. All those in a period of mourning or observing a yahrzeit, we invite you to rise as we will recite the words of Mourner's Kaddish on page 52. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, b'yalma divrach yeruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayeh d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah miborach v'yalam lameo maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'alev v'yithalal shmei d'kudisha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran v'yalma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. You may be seated. So once again, wonderful. Mazel tov. We're terrific. We look forward to hearing more from you tomorrow. Mazel tov to Jamie and Eddie and to the entire family. We again look forward to celebrating, continuing the celebration throughout Shabbat. A special welcome to my colleague, Cantor Francine Jacobs. We're glad you're here. Look forward to hearing your beautiful voice tomorrow as part of the Torah reading as well. Couple of announcements. We have our morning minyan every day, Sunday through Friday at 9 o'clock. It's on Zoom, so please join us. We always need your help in making a minyan. Sunday morning, again, I'll continue my class on the history of American Judaism. We'll be looking at the period between the Revolutionary and the Civil War, so please join us for that. There's a CBS Women's event also on Sunday. Janice Rubin will present a Zoom program on Jewish rituals of the mikveh through stories and through photographs. And you can register online and join us for any of the adult education programs. So those are our announcements, unless I've missed something and anybody would like to share. Okay, so the Talmud says if you're quiet, you agree. I'm hearing agreement. We're going to conclude our services this evening with Hatikva, page 395, and we ask you to please rise. Kolod b'leva pnima nefesh Yehudi homiya ufatim Yisra kadima ayin letzion Sophia od lo avdatik batenu hatik babat shnot alpayim leodam chofshi be'artzenu eretz Zion Yerushalayim liodam chofshi be'artzenu eretz Zion Yerushalayim. Once again, a special thank you to Nava and to our Guzumbai. We appreciate all getting it all done. We're going to ask you to find someone to meet in your immediate area, someone in your home. Eliana, why don't you go down with the family? We're going to extend the bracha of the Kohanim. Yivarech Adonai ve'yishmerecha Ya'eh פניו אליך ויחונך. יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום. שבת שלום. שבת שלום.
Thank you. Just a few.
First word.